studio late at night and the lights were down low, and Bruce wanted a driving but very subtle drum beat. So I took out a brush and a drumstick and I laid it across the drum and just played this very kind of metronomic backbeat. Almost sounds like a drum machine, but it's me. And I remember we went back into the control room and listened to it, and it's kind of a quiet down song, but Bruce said, "Man, that thing rocks."
At night I wake up with the sheets soaking wet and a freight train running through the middle of my head. Only you can cool my desire. Oh, I'm on fire.
From ABC News,
If you're caught with an ounce of cocaine, the chances are good you're going to go to jail. If it happens repeatedly, you may go to jail for the rest of your life. But evidently, if you launder nearly $1 billion for drug cartels and violate our international sanctions, your company pays a fine and you go home and sleep in your own bed at night. Every single individual associated with this. And I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Hi, I'm Tom Morello. Some call me the Night Watchman. In the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal is at a crucial stage. Please go to freemumia.com to find out more information about how you can help Mumia Abu-Jamal and other political prisoners. Night Watchman out.
Stay tuned to We Act Radio, Washington, D.C.'s only independent radio station. Catch us online at weactradio.com.
They were saying when they think you cannot hear. If you understood what they do, if for you it was so clear. If you knew they shut down the factory in an economic ruse. If you could kiss the cheek of the child in the sweatshop that made your shoes. Every time we went to war to fight our evil foes, they told you we were really fighting for the good of CEOs. If you could feel the hunger of the many, see the riches of the few. If they told it like it is, what if you knew?
Whoops. You're listening to Clearing the Fog, speaking truth to expose the forces of greed with Margaret Flowers and Kevin Zeese.
Yes, glad to be here.
Sorry about that sound in the beginning. So this morning we're going to be doing our program on fraudulent foreclosures and the people that have come to Washington, D.C. to resist
the Home Defenders League. They'll be protesting today at 145 at Freedom Plaza.
Right.
Then going down to the Department of Justice.
Marching to the Department of Justice at 2 p.m.
And demanding prosecution of the banksters.
Right.
And risking arrest.
Or occupying.
Threatening to occupy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. First, a little bit of news. Do you want to talk about this new campaign that's come from the other 98%?
Yeah, they want to buy the Tribune companies, which are the companies that own the Baltimore Sun. They own the L.A. Times, Chicago Tribune, big conglomerate of media outlets, and they're starting a grassroots campaign. You can go to OccupyWashingtonDC.org and check out on the top of the page. We have how you can get involved in that and help to have the people buy the Tribune and make it a and they want to give it back to the communities.
Wouldn't that be amazing? A truly independent major media outlet.
They use the Green Bay Packers model, which is the only football team owned by...
Community ownership, that's
exactly.
right. And there have been a lot of exciting actions over the weekend, students stepping up.
It's great to see students stepping up. In Philadelphia, thousands of students walked out of class and walked down to the city hall, and it was a major, big protest to protest the closing of dozens of schools.
Yeah, in
Chicago had 3 days of actions.
Marching through the city, right?
Marching through the city, protesting the closing of dozens of schools there as well. And both plan to escalate. This is not the end of that battle for either one. It's kind of just showing the widespread community support they have. And the kids at Cooper Union in New York are in their second week of sitting in at the president's suite.
Right.
The president of the university makes $750,000 a year. They want him to resign. He's going to end over 100 years of free tuition at Cooper Union.
Yeah.
And they're painting the suite black until he leaves. So every day they're there, they're painting more black.
Right.
To cover his suite with black paint, and hoping he will leave. And they're having a petition online. You can join in voting no confidence for the president of the board and for the chairman of the board, the president of the university and the chairman of the board. So there's over 100 kids now sitting in.
And they're getting, wow, I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah.
I knew they were getting support from other universities in New York City as well, which is great.
Groups. And a lot of this organizing, by the way, that's happening is not just the teachers union. in Chicago and Philadelphia, but also students.
Wow.
They're organizing
Fantastic.
too, so it's really great to see.
And so on that same vein, of course, May 25th is going to be the March Against Monsanto.
Everywhere.
Global Day of Action. I think 41 countries, close to 300 protests are taking place, including, I understand there will be one here in Washington, D.C. You can go to occupy-monsanto.com to find out where an action is taking place close to you. And, of course, we did our show on that topic last week. And so this Wednesday in Truth Out, we'll have an article featured on that, giving you all the information you need to know about Monsanto and why it's important that we
spent the
stop
weekend,
them.
Spent the weekend writing and researching more on Monsanto. It's so hard to. This is like the criminal corporation.
Oh my! There's so many though, and we have others to talk about today. So we should get into our show.
Okay,
So this morning, our first guests are Steve Bailey. He's a professional land surveyor in Denver, Colorado, who lost his home to a fraudulent foreclosure without missing any payments. He's now an activist dedicated to fighting unjust foreclosures with the Colorado Foreclosure Resistance Coalition and the Home Defenders League. We're also joined by Dave Petrovich, who's a consumer advocate whose career in the foreclosure realm spans 30 years. He's investigated allegations of predatory lending, predatory mortgage, loan servicing, and fraud for the Mortgage Bankers Association of America. He's executive director of the Society for Preservation of Continued Home Ownership.
Spock.
Right. And he's written a number of books. One is Fight Foreclosure, Facts and Falsehoods, Ethical Short Sales, and the other is Fight Foreclosure. And he has a new book, which apparently nobody's willing to publish, so he's publishing himself, called Foreclose This. Good morning, Steve and Dave.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on.
Good to have you guys on.
Steve, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. So, Steve, maybe if we could start with you and tell a little bit about what happened to you and the work that you're doing now.
Well, back in 2009, August 2009, we had gotten a month behind on our payments, about 30 days, and then we doubled up on our payments and caught back up on our mortgage. At that point, Wells Fargo, our servicer, solicited us into the HAMP modification program, which is a pretty simple program. You make 3 payments that are at reduced rate to prove to them that you can make payments on time. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, they make those payments permanent, and you get a little bit lower rate. So we did those 3 months. We made the 3 payments. Everything was fine. Then they, of course, started running paperwork around on us and saying they'd lost paperwork and they needed additional. And we continued to make the payments, the reduced payments, every month that they asked on time. And I guess it was April of 2010, suddenly we started getting foreclosure notices. As it turns out, we were in a process called dual tracking, where the people you're talking to on the phone in the modification department are telling you everything's fine, you're making all your payments and you're current. Well, there's another department that is a collections department in Wells Fargo, and they are foreclosing on you, and they start foreclosure proceedings and they put all the paperwork together. And the people you're talking to are telling you you're not in foreclosure, but the bank behind your back forecloses on you. And
that's a pretty trick.
Yeah, we lost our home from without ever missing a single payment, paying every single payment they ever asked us to make. In less than a year, we went from current to losing our home, to being given 30 days to come up with $15,000 or losing the home and then losing it.
Wow. So you're one of the 9 million who's lost their homes.
Maybe we should ask David to quickly comment on that. And
how's that sound, David, compared to your experience with other homeowners?
Well, unfortunately, it's all too common. Mm-hmm. The loan servicers, the representatives that are speaking with the homeowners, they're trained in certain ways to constantly make the homeowner feel assured just to keep sending those temporary payments, while in fact they're scrambling to find out if they have the standing to foreclose, if the investors who hold the mortgages are permitting any type of modification whatsoever, but all the while they are marching toward foreclosure.
Wow. So I'm perplexed
it's really
that
amazing.
This works.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve, couldn't you get a conference call with the Wells Fargo, the guys you were dealing with the modification, and you all on the phone together and talk about this?
Well, that was one of the things we asked for many times, but they didn't do it. The $25 billion settlement was supposed to address some of these things because the federal government considered them fraudulent practices. So they essentially said, okay, from here on forward, if you want us to help you through the settlement or through the bailout, you're no longer going to dual track, which is the process I just described, and we're also going to demand that you give a single point of contact, because this is one of the tricks the banks are doing, where every time you call in, you get a different person, and they refuse to let you speak to the same person. So you have to tell the story over again every time.
Jeez.
We at first thought, and they actually wrote it off as a mismanaged government program. We realized that it was actually a strategy to keep the employees that were essentially having to continuously lie to us. In our opinion, it was to keep them from starting to care too much about any single individual homeowner.
Very interesting.
Because if they never had to speak to them again, you can tell them whatever you want.
Right.
So, Dave, is there any kind of recourse for this kind of reality?
Well, hopefully the good folks in Washington that are converging today are going to rattle some cages. But I deal with the different end of this. I work with distressed homeowners who are facing foreclosure, and they're saying, well, that's fine, we're looking to get the laws changed, but what can we do today?
Right.
And what homeowners can do today is thoroughly understand the paperwork that is coming their way and understand that the lenders and the counseling agencies that they're referred to are not their friends. They are adversaries. There's an adversarial and a conflict of interest between the lending industry and the homeowners. And unfortunately, too many people place their trust and their faith in organizations that are really doing the lender's bidding and really don't give two good hoots about the homeowner.
Well, so the two things you say there: understand all the paperwork. That's a pretty big one right there, with all the gobbledygook in the paperwork. And then the second one: don't trust the person you're talking to. That sounds like a pretty challenging way to do business.
Well, unfortunately, foreclosure is, even though it's universal right now, it's very personal, and the homeowners really have to manage their own foreclosure and treat it like a part-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you had mentioned to us in previous conversations that there are these kind of nonprofit organizations that are supposed to help people through this process, but you have some concerns about them.
I do. In my experience dealing with nonprofit entities for, at least 15 years, I've found that their interests do not coincide with the homeowners. Most of these organizations are funded either partially or fully by the lending industry themselves. So, and this is what my new book, Foreclose This, really talks about. It talks about the enormous profit centers that these nonprofit organizations, which are owned by the lending industry, they're reaping enormous, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in salaries and compensation and perks, and it's ridiculous. So you have to, you're required to go to certain mortgage counselors, and that's fine. Go, but don't take what they say at face value. Read between the lines and realize that you have to manage your own foreclosure, whether it's retaining counsel, whether it's going to legal services, whether it's reading all that you can read about your lender and the lawsuits that might be involving your lender and the tricks and the practices and the policies that are in place, really to separate homeowners from their homes while rewarding the financial industry.
So, Steve, this has been, I'm sure, an eye-opening experience for you, and now you're starting...
An eye-opening and wallet emptying.
Yeah. Sad experience.
Very sad.
Very difficult. But you've gotten involved in advocacy work now in Colorado. We have to take a break in a few minutes, but maybe we can get started on this topic. Tell us a little bit about what you're learning, what's happening in your own community.
Well, I'm part of the Colorado Foreclosure Resistance Coalition and New Bottom Line. And in Colorado, we have been working not only to activate communities to get community members to come out and occupy homes and resist foreclosures or resist evictions. We've also been doing a lot of legislative support work. And we had a Colorado Homeowners Bill of Rights that we were trying to get passed this year. And what Dave was saying about the helplines not actually being an advocate for the homeowners is extremely important for people to realize. one of the bits of testimony that killed our homeowners' Bill of Rights was that the administrator for the helplines came forward, testified against our bill, and said, you know what, we know the system's broken, but we're going to help people through it, and everything's fine, so you don't have to change the laws. Unfortunately, not changing those laws is a huge problem, because the laws that essentially allow the stripping of someone's rights, the taking of someone's home when they haven't actually missed any payments. This was all set up in around 2006 after people realized, or attorneys realized, that there was going to be a huge influx in foreclosures because they were writing all these predatory loans that were designed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to come up with a system to get the homes back and get people out of them when they did fail. So they rewrote laws, state laws, all across the country. It's critical that we get in there and rewrite those laws back to where they are and put the balance back into the people's hands. But it's also important because that takes so much time to come together as a community and start supporting each other as individual homeowners and fighting for each individual home. Mm-hmm. And making sure they get to resources, like Dave, that can actually talk to them straight, tell them who their friends are, who their enemies are, and help them through this. But also just provide the idea that, you've got a community standing behind you, and just like we wouldn't let somebody smash your front window and walk in and steal your TV, we're not going to let someone come in here with a suit and a tie and steal your entire home.
Right.
We're going to stand on your lawn. We're going to refuse to let it happen. That's where Home Defenders League and the actions you're seeing in D.C. today are so important, and this week are so important.
Yeah.
Well, we want to hear about some more specifics about some of the conflicts you've had when we come back from the break. But this is really, I'm sure, eye-opening to a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. So this break we're going into with a song called Land of Dreams by David Hayes.
Land of Dreams.
Yes.
People living on the street, children were not meant to sleep under the highway. It's not my way, so I leave them alone. Worn out shoes are on their feet, dreaming of something to eat in a dry place. And God's grace in America, my home.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Now get out there and do something.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
June 27th is National HIV Testing Day.
HIV testing is fast, painless, and often free.
I've been tested for HIV.
I've been tested for HIV. Have you? To find an HIV testing center near you, visit greaterthan.org.
Hi, this is Chris Hedges, and when I'm in Washington, I don't want my news filtered through corporate sponsors. I want to hear the truth, which is why I listen to DC's only independent radio station, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, WPWC, Washington's progressive working community. We Act Radio, do something.
We live in a land of
You're listening to Clearing the Fog, speaking truth to expose the forces of greed with Margaret Flowers.
And Kevin Zeese, and we're talking today about foreclosure and the abusive practices that homeowners who are facing foreclosure go through. Steve, I want to get a little more from you about what it's been like out there trying to protect these homes. Maybe there's some highlights you can give us of some of the actions that you've gone forward with, and what kind of reaction you're getting from the police and the banks.
Yeah, it's actually we've done a few marches on banks where we went specifically for a homeowner and demanded that the bank actually negotiate a fair and honest modification for them. We've been able to keep 3 people in their homes doing that.
Great.
We've also had a woman come to us who was facing eviction out of Idaho Springs, and she's actually in D.C. risking arrest again today. Sahara Donahue, and she came to us and asked us for help, and we went up and spoke to the sheriff as well as speaking to the bank, and explained everything and asked the sheriff not to evict, to give her I think 3 more days to move out, so that she could move her stuff out in dignity, because evictions are a very sort of violent event.
They really are.
Yeah.
They have to, by law, remove everything from the property in a certain amount of time, and in less than a day. So they bring in a huge number of people. Sahara is a grandma, been in her house for 25 years, and it was rough when they were going to come out and take everything. It would have been a horrible act when they threw it out on the curb. So we went up there, and I don't know, 15 or 20 of us occupied the home and tried to stop the eviction. We made it very clear it was nonviolent, that we were there really more as support for Sahara, that we were not necessarily going to blockade or barricade. And the Clear Creek County Sheriff put together a tri-county SWAT team.
Wow. Using
funds from the home defense. They've gotten AR-15s and full battle gear, and they look like soldiers coming in from Afghanistan, and 20 of them raided Sahara's house when most of us were up there, and put AR-15s to people's heads and used violent language to force them to the ground. Eventually, kicking in the door of Sahara's house, and when an officer put a rifle to her face, automatic rifle, she said, in her own kitchen, she said, "You get that rifle out of my face." And that apparently upset him. So he slung his rifle down off his back and picked her up and threw her down on her own kitchen floor.
This is a grandmother, and I understand she had some health problems, which
she did. She'd been
led to her difficulties.
Yeah, she'd been in an accident somewhere before, and it led to some difficulties paying the mortgage. But this kind of gets me. So we're at a point where we would like to protect our communities, but the banks not only have all of the power in court, but then that power is then extended to them in our police force. So our sheriff's departments all across this country are going and evicting people at gunpoint out of their own homes. Many people who haven't missed payments, or certainly many people who the bank could never prove standing and had no right to foreclose in the first place.
Right,
wow.
Right, wow.
I remember reading that incident, and some of the police involved knew that the homeowner had gone through this illness and were aware that that's what caused the problem. They still went ahead and participate. It's just the insanity of it.
It's insane. I spoke with the commander who led the raid for 25 minutes that morning and explained everything to him and really made it very clear what our intentions were. And
they still treated you violently.
Yeah, well, they were sending a signal. The signal was loud and clear.
Yes, it was.
You don't try to resist foreclosure in my county.
Right.
And,
well, maybe David could comment a little bit on that. I mean, so the banks are using our police force to serve themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that? We're not hearing him.
Hold on a second. There's something wrong with the volume. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, David, I don't know if you were talking, but we couldn't hear you. We'll give you just a minute.
We gotta see something was wrong with the volume on your
phone line, I guess.
Your phone line.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can get that fixed quickly.
And we have video. I recall we have video and a report from the Idaho Springs action.
If you go to Occupy Washington DC and put Colorado in, or Colorado home foreclosure, you'll be able to see the video of the what Steve described.
Yeah, I mean the police were wearing camouflage. They actually look like military.
All right, let's see if Dave is working now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Now
can.
I can
All
hear
right,
you
sorry
great.
about
Thank
that.
you.
So what's your comment on that?
In addition to the police throwing people out of their homes and the sheriff's department, behind the scenes, the lenders are introducing to court fraudulent documents. Robo-signing is not just some cute phrase, but it's really introducing...
Oops. My goodness,
Jeez.
we're having some sound problems this morning.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm still...
Sorry,
this is unusual.
We never had this happen before.
No.
We've had other problems.
We have. That's what happens.
All right, go ahead. So they're using robo signing
For fraudulent...
to produce fraudulent documents?
Yes, they're going to judges who might be either inexperienced or in the pocket of the financial industry who don't fully understand Uniform Commercial Code or securitization, and they are placing fraudulent documents in public record to get people out of their homes. We need a moratorium on owner-occupied residential mortgage foreclosures.
Mm-hmm.
We need a special panel of judges that are trained in securities law, in Uniform Commercial Code, in foreclosure. I think bankruptcy court judges would be ideal candidates because they could be empowered to instantly rewrite mortgage loans or even extinguish the loan. We the people really need to step up and force.
You know, I saw last week that the California Attorney General was filing suit against one of the banks out there for using robo-signing documents for credit cards, essentially fake credit card debt.
And also in New York.
New York also, fake credit card debt, and then the person who's in supposed debt doesn't even get notice of the court action, so they don't show up, so the court rules in favor of the bank, and it's not even a real debt.
Yeah.
My daughter handles pro bono credit card collections for folks. And what we do is demand to see the original promissory note.
Right.
They can't produce it, case dismissed.
But is that happening with these fraudulent foreclosures? Because I understand they're still not able to produce the documents.
No, they're not able, but they're submitting to the court affidavits of lost documents, or there's an allonge which is missing. But they're perpetrating a fraud upon the courts.
Mm.
And the judges either are unskilled or they just don't want to deal with it, and they're rubber stamping these foreclosures, and that's a mistake.
So, David, let's get more in depth what people should do.
In the last few minutes,
maybe. We have a couple minutes.
You have some books that you've written, maybe telling people where they can find those and what you recommend the first steps are?
I hate to say it, the minute my book comes out, it's outdated. Things are changed. It's like an onion. The more you unpeel it, the worse the rot gets. I just recommend to people, go on the internet and read all you can read and learn about your lender and learn about what people are doing in your neck of the woods. There are organizations that are out there. They're being disavowed by HUD. They're being disavowed by the lending industry. Oh, they're charlatans. They're telling you to challenge the foreclosure. Don't do that. Just sign over your house and walk away. And even in judicial mediation proceedings, they're telling people, well, just don't fight it. Just walk away.
Yeah.
And that's just awful advice.
Absolutely. And we do have your email address that we'll post on our website, clearingthefogradio.org.
And I will talk to anyone in confidence. You don't even have to tell me your name, and we can have a nice conversation about what's going on, and maybe you can start walking in the right direction.
Well, we definitely appreciate the work that you do.
Well, it's serious. There was a report that came out by Realty Track. 1.5 million properties in the first quarter are in active process of foreclosure. So this is years into this collapse, this is still a big challenge.
We didn't even touch on the use of prudent eminent domain.
Oh, that's a brilliant. Yeah, we'll touch on it quickly.
People have to stand up and demand of their local governments to implement the use of eminent domain to take back the public taking of either foreclosed properties in limbo that remain vacant and unused, or toxic mortgage loans. And if it's a public entity doing that, for instance, a public bank, fully transparent, they can remove these toxic mortgages, free up the foreclosure process, renegotiate the debt, and allow people continued affordable home ownership.
So basically, the city uses its eminent domain power to take back properties that are in trouble, and renegotiate the terms of the mortgage so that people can afford to stay
if
there.
they take back the properties, the mortgages are already gone.
Mm-hmm.
But by looking at the mortgage itself as property,
Mm-hmm.
if you loosely interpret, eminent domain, a mortgage is property.
Right.
And by doing that, you pay the alleged lender, if they can prove standing, that's another matter.
Mm-hmm.
If they can prove that they have a valid lien, give them 30 cents on the dollar, whatever the number is, that's fair.
Great.
Right.
Great. Well, let's give Steve a chance.
That would be a really good... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, do you want to make any final comments, recommendations that you have, or talk about your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical that we find creative ways to fix the system, because the system is broken and designed to hold us down. I'd say the biggest thing I'd like to get people to understand is that the foreclosure crisis is not a standalone event.
That's
It
right.
was not caused by the crash. The foreclosure crisis is an extension of the fraudulent banking and lending practices that caused the crash.
Right.
Yes.
Foreclosures started to spike way before the crash did, back in 2000. That's why the laws were rewritten in 2006 to expedite them, and the crash wasn't until 2007, 2008. So we really are talking about, and I think William Black has expressed it well, we're talking about a set of crimes that is 80 times that of the savings and loan scandal.
That's right.
Right.
And not a single banker has gone to jail when over 1,000 went to jail in savings and loan. This has crippled our economy. It will continue to cripple our economy until we get things straight and get the rights back into people's hands. Until we feel secure in our homes, we can't afford to make the investments that we have to make to rebuild the economy. We've got to do it on a solid foundation, and there's only one way we can get it done, coming together as people, because the government's made it clear that they will not do it for us.
They're on the
Very
side
good.
of the bankers.
Great points.
Yeah.
And we had Bill Black on, and that we ended up doing a 3-part series on remaking finance. I think this is probably your 4th part of it now when we do this one on foreclosures, because this is a major part of remaking finance. But yeah, right. It's really a corrupt system and a dysfunctional government, and a corrupt economic system and a dysfunctional government that gives the concentrated wealth of these big banks way too much power over everybody's lives.
That's why it's up to the people to make this change, and it's been done before. We can do it again. We're going to talk about that more in our next
half.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Steve and Dave. We're going to go into this break with a song that's called the Bank of Un-America. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you for going
Thank
on.
you. Okay.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks. Bank of Un-America.
'Cause we're the bank of Un-America. We're proud to give you a loan and then a notice of foreclosure. No, we don't care what your name is. That's why we give you a number. It just makes it that much easier for us to foreclose. You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
This is Kimon Freeman, host of Speak Easy and co-founder of We Act Radio. Suicide is a very serious problem in today's challenging world, whether with our troops abroad or with everyday citizens within our own society. Before you take your life into your own hands, tie a knot at the end of your rope and call the suicide hotline toll-free at 1-855-320-LIFE. That's 1-855-320-LIFE. It may just be the most important call you ever make. You talk, we listen, and together we survive.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I speak from Pennsylvania's death row.
A bright, shiny, highly mechanized hell.
Mumia Abu-Jamal is one of the lost souls of the revolution.
And they're trying to figure out how to shut.
Hello?
On the move. This is Mumia Abu Jamal.
Hi, I'm Tom Morello. Some call me the Night Watchman. And the case of Mumia Abu Jamal is at a crucial stage. Please go to freemumia.com to find out more information about how you can help Mumia Abu Jamal and other political prisoners. Night Watchman out.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Now get out there and do something.
I'm gonna steal like a billionaire. Thieves and gangsters at the bank. I should've made those pirates walk the
You're listening to Clearing the Fog, Speaking Truth to Expose the Forces of Greed with Margaret Flowers.
And Kevin Zeeson. We're talking about the foreclosure crisis today.
That's right. And we have with us a guest in the studio and another guest joining us on the phone. Our guest today is Deborah Castillo. She's a homeowner from St. Louis, Missouri, who's here for the Justice to Justice rally. And she's a member of MORE and the Home Defenders League, which is part of a coalition that's organizing this rally. Kevin Whelan is the Home Defenders League campaign director. And the League is a national organization fighting against foreclosure and for a just resolution to the mortgage crisis, including the mass principal reduction for underwater homeowners. Its 24 community-based affiliates, including Occupy Our Homes and others. Thank you for joining us today, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Yes. I'm here in support of other homeowners who have, just like I, have either lost their home or in the process of being foreclosed on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here directly to go to the Department of Justice. So we want to speak to Eric Holder,
the Attorney General.
The Attorney General. We want him to hear us. Also, more importantly, to get the bankers. They are the ones that cause this problem.
Right.
And we as homeowners are suffering from the bankers' greed. It's not a mistake.
Right.
It's pure greed.
Right.
And their greed has caused an effect on all of us in a systemic way, as far as loss of homes, loss of tax revenue, communities that have been destroyed, and more importantly, families.
Right.
So we want answers, but we also want action, not just answers. We want actions. We want to see people pay the cost for breaking the law.
It's amazing how Holder testified in Congress that these banks were too big to prosecute, and has let them off the hook. It's a real shame.
But it's a question: are they too big to prosecute? So were we the easier victims?
Exactly. No, I think they should be prosecuted. I found Holder's comments to be pretty obscene. These banks need to be held accountable. If you don't hold them accountable, they'll keep acting this way. And so I totally agree that that's what needs to be done. The Home Defenders League website, by the way, has some really good information on it. People should check it out, homedefendersleague.org, and it has a report on the loss of wealth in communities. Major shifting of wealth from working people to the banks by taking their homes.
Exactly. And you look around communities that were prospering with people going to work back and forth, and you see now vacant homes. And the only thing that has increased in our neighborhoods are alarm companies, so-called police protection, and burglary. But communities have died, and the homes that have been taken away have caused people to die internally.
Exactly.
And it's affecting us all.
Yeah, foreclosure does nothing good. I mean, it puts people in the street. It undermines communities. I don't see, even the banks don't. It's not a good thing for anybody.
Right.
Correct.
Right. But somebody's profiting off of it.
That's it. They're profiting, but in the long run, we all suffer because as taxpayers, which with foreclosures, there's less in the cities, but we still pay the cost, taxpayers, so we pay it either way.
Right.
The bankers still get rich, but the taxpayers pay the cost.
Right, right.
So how long ago did you lose your home?
I lost my home. I had to move out on December 18th last year.
Oh, nice Christmas present.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so but there are thousands of people around the country, or millions actually, that are experiencing this, and people have decided to come to D.C. this week. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you specifically plan to do? I understand that a letter was sent to the Attorney General before coming to D.C.
Yes.
Requesting that meeting.
Right. And now, because of the letter requested a meeting and so forth, we've decided that they need to hear more from us and to speak to us directly. So people from all over the United States, people that have lost their homes, people that know others that have, and people that support us are all here. And we want to speak directly to Eric Holder. And we want answers as to why, what's going on. We want the why, what, and where. We want answers.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not one of these, well, maybe we can talk about it later. We need something out. We need action.
Right.
It's the bottom line.
Right. And the people that are coming today are planning to stay. Is that what I understand? And
we'll be here as long as it takes
right.
to get what we need. We need to speak to them.
Wow.
So we will be here for a while. We're not going away tonight.
That's good. No, I think that's what you have to do. I mean, unfortunately, these people don't show a lot of respect for the people of the United States that they're supposed to represent. And so it takes a lot of effort to get them to pay attention. I mean, this is such an amazing crisis, this foreclosure crisis, with really millions of people being affected by it, millions of families. Talk about 9 million home foreclosures since 2007. What's that? 3 people in a house at the minimum. So that's like almost 30 million Americans.
Yeah, that have lost their homes.
If this was any other industry in the United States that was crumbling like this, Congress would stand up and take notice. The president will stand up and take notice, and everyone would immediately vote to do something to make a correction. We haven't seen that action taken in Congress.
Right.
Now, there was actually, I think, a pretty clear solution from the beginning. I mean, what we have in this country was a big housing bubble where prices got exaggerated.
Correct.
People got mortgages on these exaggerated prices, or people who had existing mortgages got equity lines to take some of the profit out of their home and live on it because incomes are so lousy. So people mortgaged based on this exaggerated price. The mortgages get too expensive, and the housing bubble starts to burst. Prices go down, but the mortgages still stay at the housing bubble price. So people are paying the price of the bubble, so the banks are profiting at the bubble price while we're all suffering.
Correct.
And if the obvious solution was to bring down the mortgage, the main value of the mortgage down to what the real price of the house was.
Correct. But no one rewrote those mortgages
to
the exact value of what they're, the current value, market value of what they are. So we have mortgages that are of the inflated prices, and people are expected to make those inflated payments when the reality is there's not enough income.
That's right.
Yeah.
To cover that.
Over the same period, we've seen our incomes falling, and
right.
and the wealth in the community is falling. Well, it's interesting. What was it since the crash that 121% of the recovery has gone to the top 1%, and the rest of us have actually had a loss.
That's more than 100%. 121% going to that means 21% of that came from people losing, wealth and
right.
being transferred to the top 1%. So it's been an incredible time for the wealthy to get wealthier and everyone else to get poorer. And the housing bubble and the foreclosure crisis is a real big example of that. And so you're a big part of that. You're one of millions who have unfortunately had to contribute that without your choice.
Correct. It's a statistic we didn't ask for.
Exactly.
So is there a Home Defenders League or similar groups active in St. Louis? Are people working together to try to stop foreclosures?
Yes, they are. We are working together in St. Louis to find out how and what can be done to help a person remain in their home, to stop or delay a foreclosure by trying to talk to the banks, talk to various lenders, and seeing if there's something that can be worked out to save a homeowner in their home, because a vacant home doesn't help anyone.
Right.
And so what kind of things are you doing? What kind of reaction are you getting?
Well, we're getting a positive reaction. Some of the actions are if we find someone, and it depends on the when people contact you, you have to put the plan in place where that person's at.
Yeah.
So if someone's going to be evicted, then you try to see if you can delay while working with a bank or putting them in touch with someone at the bank, asking for more time, trying to find loan modification programs, helping them understand the loan modification process. Then we have where people are, if they're being evicted, trying to more so avoid it by standing in front, barring the doors, and so forth. It's a defense mechanism that hopefully the bank, the sheriff won't serve them, and people will not be removed from their property. But there's various tactics.
Right.
But anything that's trying to help someone stay in their home, because you realize the destruction, the long-term devastation and destruction that comes along with being removed from your property.
Right.
Right. Very powerful that the people are staying together, though, and coming together in that kind of self-help approach will really build community. This is not an easy battle.
No.
No.
We need to take another quick break.
All right.
Our last one. And this is a song called Bank Attack. It's by Twice Thou. It came from the Massachusetts group City Life, Vita Urbana.
I like Bank Attack.
It's time to wake up and get with the movement. Hear the message in the music now. We can fight back, or we can lay down, or beat back the bank attack and stay proud. They got bailed out, we getting sold out. Some living underwater in their own house. They hear the word foreclosure, they get scared and think it's all over. But nah, the fight just begun. It ain't gonna be easy, but it must be won. Cause Bank of America's bad for America. Congress held hostage, they kidnapped the treasurer.
You're listening to WPWC, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, weactradio.com. I'm Mayor Bill Ewell. Did you know that 1 in 6 children in our country is obese? Being overweight puts kids at risk for high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and many other diseases. Let's encourage kids in Alexandria to engage in healthy, balanced, and active lifestyles. Reduce their time in front of the TV or computer and get physically active. And we can set an example by being active with them. For more information on preventing childhood obesity, visit usmayors.org/childhood obesity.
Brought to you by the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the American Beverage Association.
Yo, George Dr. Funkenstein Clinton saying you're listening to We Act Radio. They do the dog, y'all.
Rapidly, back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. We gon' beat back the bank attack. We gon' beat back that bank attack. Set up with the people, yeah, and down with the bank. Those greedy banks. Set up with the people, yeah, and down with the bank. Those dirty banks.
Okay. Okay.
Well, let's hope we get them.
Oh, you're listening to Clearing the Fog, speaking truth to expose the forces of greed with Margaret Flowers.
And Kevin Zeese.
And our guest this morning is Deborah Castillo. She's here with the Home Defenders League Justice to Justice rally and planned possible occupation of the Department of Justice. It's very exciting. We were just chatting about that.
Taking a week off of work to stay as long as she can.
Yeah, not the only one. Yeah.
It's going to be a busy week of actions in D.C. We mentioned there's also going to be a bunch of low-wage worker rallies and events happening this
Starting
week,
tomorrow?
too. Starting tomorrow. So
Actually, a full-on strike.
Full-on strike, and it was this. I think this is the 7th city now that they've
right,
done
we
these.
just recently
these
was Detroit.
Milwaukee, and Chicago, and it's happening all
York.
over the country. So this is now D.C. gets its turn on the low-wage worker strike.
It's an exciting time. People are really starting to stand up. Were you an advocate or an activist before your home crisis?
Or is this new to you?
It's not new to me. I was an advocate before, but then it hit me directly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to more so start focusing on my survival and how I was going to take care of my family and realizing what did I need to do because it seemed like it wasn't going to stop.
Right.
And through going back and forth, even with suing the bank. And I'm still in the process of a lawsuit.
Oh, you filed a lawsuit against them?
I filed a lawsuit against them.
What's the point of your lawsuit?
The judge they tried to, I lost the ability to stay in my home. So I have a $17,000 retainer against me just for that. And so now we're back in court. We tried to do a settlement, but in the settlement, they wanted me to not speak to anyone, give up all my rights, my legal rights. And even if
I see you obeyed that. As you're here in Washington, D.C. for a protest, but go ahead.
Right. And if for some reason, say for example, if my children wanted to buy the home back, and give it to me. I didn't have the right to take it.
Oh my goodness.
They would take that away from me, and they wanted me to sign that. And I said, wait a minute, that doesn't make
crazy.
sense.
Good
if
for you.
someone came in and actually said the home was up for auction and they bid the price, even if they bid the highest price, I still had no legal right to be on that property. And I thought, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I said, no. So their whole goal is to destroy a person, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
They break you down to the smallest that they can.
Yeah.
So you will not have the ability to fight back. And so far, I'm still standing, and I've got a lot of people behind me.
Well, that's the key. That's the key. There's a great speech by Tim DeChristopher, who's a climate justice activist, who talks about when he was in court, because he was prosecuted for trying to stop some illegal sales of land, and so he was in court, and they said, in court, they make you feel so alone, like you're powerless, that when you come outside, though, he saw all his supporters, and he realized that his finger was part of a hand.
Well, he said he was a pinky. In the court, he felt like a pinky.
That's right.
And then when he came out, he realized that was part of a
hand,
whole
and then a hand of solidarity that could come together and be strong together. So that kind of community development is important, because this is going to be one of a bunch of battles we're going to be fighting in this country.
Right. This is not the end of this.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
Yes.
Well, I'd love to get into that a little bit more, because I think you've hit on a really important part, is that the system is designed to make you feel like it's your fault, or that you're alone, and that maybe you're not smart enough to fight back, or you don't have the tools to fight back. But at some point you realize that that's a ruse, don't you? That it's actually the system is designed to do that, and it's not your individual fault that this is happening.
Yes, it weakens you, because they set up a plan where you can start out being, and I was 3 months behind, just 3 months. And I asked them, if you would please just put those 3 months on the back end, work with lowering the payment. And it happened with medical problems. I have 2 children that have medical problems. Husband lost a good paying job, so you went from 2 great incomes to 1.
And then we don't have a health system that takes care of us. Right.
And so, you have all of these additional problems. But one key thing that I had was my primary mortgage insurance. And that is supposed to help in cases like this.
Right.
And that was my so-called, I guess, catch-all for the bank. It wasn't really for me. I'm paying it every month, but it goes to the bank. And that's that bank security blanket. But it's like the security blanket turned on me. And
insurance is so good.
We say that
everywhere we work, we see health insurance. They're all so good to us.
Well, no, it's in their profit making center. We could go into that.
And instead of them working to help me stay in a home, because I can make the payments, but instead of working with me, since they were able to reap the money or get the money for foreclosing, because if they didn't profit from foreclosing on homes, trust me, they wouldn't take back this property. They would sit down and work.
Right.
That's right.
It's been made too easy, because you would not take back a car if you were a car dealer, if you had to have that car sit on your lot and you couldn't sell it, if you didn't get paid for it.
Right.
The same thing goes with the homes.
So what's happened to your house since then? Has it been sold or?
Oh no, my home is just sitting there.
Sitting there vacant.
It's been vandalized. No, I can't be in it. I'm not supposed to be on the property. It's tagged. And this is a home we built from the ground up. This is a home that, it's more than just a home.
Right. Yeah.
It is birthdays.
Right.
Graduations, because all of these things have been experienced in that home.
Right.
With my family.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not just me, it's a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Because to them it's a building.
Right.
But to us it's our dreams, our lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
so
everything.
forth.
Yeah.
And so when you don't live in a neighborhood, when you don't actually see the destruction that you're doing to people,
you can get away with it. Yeah,
it doesn't affect you. You don't think twice about it.
Right.
Horrible.
You just sign paper and you move on.
Right.
And that happens to a lot of people.
That's why these kinds of actions of making it visible are so important, because people need to know the destruction that's being done.
Well, that's one thing that's on the Home Defenders League website also, is the stories of people. We do have Kevin on the line now, by the way.
Oh, we do?
But that's one of the things that's on the website. I think it's pretty powerful, is the story of people who've gone through what you've gone through. It's a really tough thing.
Yeah. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late.
Don't worry about it.
Down here.
We'll get what we can from you. So how's the weekend looking?
Or the week?
The week looking?
The week, it's very exciting. We've had more RSVPs than we expected. People have been hopping in vans and buses around the country. and homeowners and other people who have been hurt by the Wall Street crash came together and studied and trained over the weekend, and are really, many of them have never met each other, some of them have never been involved in a protest or activism in their life before, are really excited to take peaceful but very strong action. People are willing to risk arrest if necessary, to camp out if necessary, to get some kind of response about prosecuting the bankers and bringing relief to our community. So people are very excited down here.
Wow, that's great. So what is the plan for the day? So we can let people know what the
Hopefully our listeners will join.
We're going to gather starting at 1 o'clock in Freedom Plaza.
That's where we had our occupation. We organized Occupation Freedom Plaza.
That was our home.
Our 6 months, yeah. So we know Freedom Plaza well.
Excellent. You remember the cross streets better than me then. We will. So Freedom Plaza, starting at 1 o'clock, we're going to gather, and then by about 1:30, we're going to go head on the march right up to the front doors of the Department of Justice, which is just a few blocks away.
Very close. Yeah.
And this isn't a thing. It's not sort of a lunchtime rally. We're going to come and go in a half hour. We're going to be out there. People are going to be joining us from around the region by bus, New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Baltimore, and we're going to bring 50 plus folks who have been fighting foreclosure up to the front door of Justice and ask Eric Holder to meet with us and respond to our demands that we spelled out.
And what are your demands? What do you want to see happen?
We want the Wall Street criminals who he's declared too big to jail to be prosecuted and held accountable for what they've done. And we want him to use that legal power to hold them accountable and make them pay back our communities by stopping illegal foreclosures, by resetting people's mortgages to what houses are actually worth, and restoring some of the wealth that's been drained from and is being drained today from all American communities, and particularly communities of color that were hardest hit and targeted for predatory lending.
Right.
And for starters, we'd like him, since he's making assessments that it's bad for the economy to prosecute banks, we think he needs to have at least a conversation with some of the people and see the other 99% of the economy and how his decisions are affecting them.
Excellent. Well, those are the kind of things that should have been done in 2009. As soon as Obama was elected, those are the kind of actions he should have taken, because they were on the board. People were talking about those issues then. So it really takes this kind of people pressure that you're all trying to organize to push the administration and the Congress in the right direction here.
And they don't like to be pushed, and they don't like to be exposed. I mean, we saw that when we were on Freedom Plaza, and the Super Committee was trying to cut Social Security and Medicare, and we protested it regularly. And they didn't have the nerve to do it back then. They all kind of disappeared. The Super Committee just kind of slunk away right before Thanksgiving, without even something more for us to go and protest.
This is a good time to put pressure on Holder, since he's under attack for other reasons. He needs to be under attack, but this is a much more real reason, in my view, that people should be really holding his feet to the fire for not prosecuting these banksters.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. There's stuff that's about talking points, or I don't know what else, sort of political things. But meanwhile, people have in Wall Street banks have gotten away with stealing, in some sense, more than all the money in the world. Right? They dug a financial hole bigger than all the money that really existed and got it filled in, courtesy of the taxpayers. And are still, running rampant, committing, giving homeowners the runaround when they're trying to get a modification or foreclosing using fraudulent documents. And we've been through several rounds of promises that things are going to get better, that this settlement with 49 state attorney generals is going to help, and a lot of that relief has never materialized, that there is going to be a special commission to investigate the banks after that, and nothing has come of it. So here we are 5 years into the crisis, and if people believe some of these promises or look to some of these programs for relief, it's pretty obvious that it's not coming now. But it's not over. There is still time. There's still great anger across this country at the banks.
Yes.
Even people that aren't sympathetic necessarily to the homeowners in all cases. Just about everybody knows that banks got away with robbery of our economy, and not one's gone to jail. And I think we need to connect that to the real stories of how people are suffering today because of it. So that's what we're marching to do. So anybody can join us at 1, they can join us at 2, and we're going to be out there as long as it takes. So head down to the Department of Justice after work, and I bet you'll still see us.
I'm glad. It's great work. I'm glad all these organizations came together to do this.
And I hope the local people will come and support you as they did when we were in Freedom Plaza. People brought us supplies, food and clothing and things like that. And I hope the community steps up and does the same
thing. We're going to see how it
thing.
plays out, but I think we would appreciate that support. People can get more information at two websites, probably all over the internet soon, but homedefendersleague.org.
We'll have that on our website.
And occupyourhomes.org.
Yep, those are two. We've had them on before, and we'll definitely put those links on our website. And we plan to write an article about this too. So we'll see how this plays out, and we'd be very interested to know what next steps can happen to escalate this, because I think that's what has to happen is a campaign of escalation. So I hope this is the first step. If we don't succeed now, we plan to escalate further. So we want to hear more about that too. But we'll write about this for Truth Out. And it'll be published next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. So we'll be following what's going on this week.
Well, thank you very much. I have to hop aboard.
Well, we're wrapping up, so we're wrapping out of time. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Deborah, do you have any last words for people who are facing the same thing as you?
Just people to rally around one another, and you're not alone when this happens.
That's
so speak to others, look for help, share information. But also, we need supporters.
Right.
We need supporters, and we need to stick together and make a Congress accountable for the banks.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
we'll go out with
our what goes on.
Usual song by Junkyard Empire. It's called We Want. The people organized.
Can build the kind of
future we want.
This is Margaret Flowers.
And I'm Kevin Zeese. Join us every Monday morning at 11 a.m. for Clearing the Fog.
Speaking truth to expose the forces of greed.
Start the week with your eyes open.
The fog.
The forces of greed that spin news stories for the benefit of the 1%.
Each week we feature guests who are working to expose these truths and offer real solutions to the current crises we face.
Knowledge is power, and with knowledge you will be empowered to act, to shift the power to the people.
Monday mornings at 11 a.m. on weactradio.com or 1480 a.m.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Now get out there and do something.
Fast action to empower trade unions and reform the government industry.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Now get out there and do something.
On inspection of the country's garment factory. The outcome of UN Radio.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nadia Pillay, is calling for swift
You're
action
listening to We Act Radio.
And overhaul the garment industry. This follows the deaths of more than 1,000 people in Bangladesh last month in the collapse of a building which housed several clothing factories. Human rights spokesperson Rupert Colville says the High Commissioner is urging greater emphasis on oversight and inspections.
This issue does not, of course, just concern Bangladesh. 2 years ago, the UN agreed a series of guiding principles on what needs to be done by businesses and governments everywhere. Governments must have effective policies to prevent, punish, and redress abuse of workers' rights. Businesses must act to prevent and address rights abuses, and victims must have access to effective remedy. In other words, while the spotlight has been on the international brands sourcing from Bangladesh, this should not detract from the duties and responsibilities of governments and factories to prevent this kind of disaster happening and to ensure redress and accountability when they do.
The UN Human Rights Chief has also welcomed the decision by nearly 40 companies worldwide to sign a workplace safety agreement for Bangladesh. Deanne Penn, United Nations.
In other news, 100,000 workers marched through the streets of Rome on Saturday, May 18th. They demanded that the government stop its austerity programs and focus on creating jobs. On the same day, police in India attacked a demonstration of auto workers and their families at the Maruti Suzuki plant in Haryana. About 100 people were arrested. The demonstrators were demanding the release of 147 workers arrested during a confrontation at the auto plant last July. The International Labour Organization, the ILO, has told the government of Swaziland that it must officially recognize the country's labor federation. The government revoked the registration of the Trade Union Congress of Swaziland, TUCUSWA, when the Congress called for democratic elections.